Hello, my wonderful viewers. This is the Zebra Conductor here, and I am recording this video to give you my thoughts before watching the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series coming on Disney+. I am recording this the day of the first two episodes coming out. I have not watched them yet. I just wanted to give my thoughts beforehand of what I think of Percy Jackson as a whole, what I think of the cast, my first impressions before seeing them, as well as just some other thoughts I have and plans for how the show could go forward. So, since I've not watched these episodes, please do not put any spoiler details in the comments. Like anything that's going to spoil the show or anything new they add. I do not want to know. You can give your opinions on things, like if I meant talk about a certain cast member, you can tell me in the comments how you think they did in the show, or how good it looks, but just nothing that's going to give anything big away. And this video for me is just going to be unscripted, so you might hear me ramble on sometimes, or pause and collect my thoughts, but I'm going to try to keep this video going at a nice pace. So, without further ado, let me get started by explaining my history with Percy Jackson. Now, for my history with this books, I love the Percy Jackson book series. Skunk has always been the Harry Potter person, while I've always definitely been more in the Percy Jackson fan base. Ever since late elementary school, I've loved Greek mythology and learning all about the heroes and gods and monsters. And then I picked up this book series in middle school when I found out it was all about that stuff, and I loved it. It was very fun seeing how all the different mythological characters have worked themselves into the modern world, and I learned, thanks to this and the Heroes of Olympus sequel series, all a bunch of minor Greek mythological things I had no idea about. All with very fun and sassy writing, and a great cast of characters to guide us through 5 books. So yeah, I love Riordan's works. I've read all the Percy Jackson books, all of the Heroes of Olympus, all of Magnus Chase, and some of Kane Chronicles, and I need to finish reading Trials of Apollo, as well as the new books that have come out this year, but you can consider me a big fan. And like many big fans, I wanted to see this eventually get adapted in the way Harry Potter got. And, well, now is when we talk about the movies. Like most Percy Jackson fans, I do not like these movies. I do not like them one bit. There's a reason a lot of the fan base even refuses to acknowledge these things, and for good reason. Now, as movies on their own, they're fine, I guess, as just your simple young adult adventure story, but as an adaptation, it stinks like Pegasus dung. Like, the first movie got a bad rap with ruining so many things, like making Hades an evil villain when the first book did a pretty good job at not making him that. Having Persephone in the underworld, even though she shouldn't be there in the summer, and all sorts of stuff that just really ticked me off. Sea of Monsters did the same thing. Now, there were some good things in that movie. Stanley Tucci and Nathan Fillion were 100% the saving graces. But yeah, the ending completely ruined any chance of this ever getting a sequel, and good. I did not want to see how they would handle the last 3 books. From my understanding, Rick Riordan, the author, was not involved with these movies much at all, and he has very much denounced them, and for good reason. So yeah, let's just move on from these, and let's talk about the series. The adaptation that I hope is going to be good. Now, I think a good place for me to start talking about with this series would be giving my thoughts on the cast. Who's going to be playing our characters? Now, I've seen most of the trailers and promotional pics and all the announcements for who's playing who. So this is all my knowledge I have before going into this series. So, for the cast, where better to start with the main trio themselves. Walker as Percy, Arian as Grover, and Leah as Annabeth. Now, from what I've seen, I've also seen some clips of them on YouTube of them all in interviews and hanging out together. I do think they all captured the vibe of the gang really well. Walker, especially as Percy. A little bit before this, I watched the movie he was in on Netflix, The Adam Project, and I thought he did really well, especially in the sass department. If there's one thing Percy Jackson is legendary for, it's the sass. And so yeah, after watching that, I thought, with good writing and directing, he'll make a good Percy. And after seeing the other two and how they all interact, I do think they will make a good trio. And I know that all of them have read the books and are fans, which I think is definitely a good thing you want for a book adaptation, is to make at the minimum, just make sure your cast actually reads the things. But it's also very nice to have people who are fans of this series and are passionate about it, and I think that's going to help their performances when I eventually see them. And now we're going to talk a bit of controversy that came with this character announcement, particularly in how the fact that they don't fully look how they were described in the books and the series' decision to not change that. For example, Percy in the books is described as having black hair with sea green eyes. And Walker does not have black hair, as you can clearly see. It was a decision said that they're not going to give them wigs, hair dye, or eye contacts to change them. And admittedly, I was a bit put off at this at first. As well as Annabeth, because she is very different from how her physical appearance is described in the books. And so I'm going to take a second to talk about that, the controversy a bit, and my overall thoughts on it. So, out of all the main trio, Leah Jeffries as Annabeth, I think, has had the most discussion online and differing opinions. So, let me give my 2 cents on this. So, one of the things I've always loved about Rick Riordan's books and his writing style was his physical description of the characters, all the gods, monsters, etc. He described them in a way where I could just perfectly picture as to how they looked in my mind. It helped give a perfect, mental picture of what was happening, and I could just imagine everything of what was happening in the books perfectly in my mind. And out of all the characters, I think Annabeth is the one who has been described the most throughout the entire Riordanverse, as being blonde hair and gray eyes, the latter of which comes from her mother Athena. And this is an image that has been instilled in my brain since middle school, and has been instilled in the PJO fan base since the book came out almost 2 decades ago. So when this casting choice came out, I can understand some people at least being a bit confused about this, but then I heard of what Rick Riordan himself had to say. He is a lot more involved in this series than he is with the movies, which, thank the Lord, that's what most of us made us hope that it would be a better adaptation and more accurate. And he had a hand of casting our characters here, and he said that he personally did not really care about appearance much, and was more of concerned with who best captured the personality and vibe of the characters, and for him, Leah was the one who could best portray Annabeth. Now, for my personal thoughts on race swapping, I'm usually not the biggest fan of it, just because I think characters for the most part should look how they were meant to be portrayed. But listen, I'm okay with this. I was a bit upset at first just because, again, I've just always pictured how Annabeth looks in the books in my mind. And it's not just her, the same goes for the others like Percy too. It's just how they've all been instilled in my mind. But after thinking about it, I decided, if Rick really thinks that these kids are the best ones to portray these characters, then that's fine with me. And heck, There's been characters who have been race swapped before, and it has not bothered me. One example that comes to my mind is the 2003 Daredevil movie, where the role of the Kingpin was played by Michael Clark Duncan. Was he racially accurate to the character of the comics? No, he was not. But honestly, he gave a very excellent performance, and was probably the best part of what I consider to just be an okay movie. Daredevil 2003 is alright, but Michael Clark Duncan, sorry about that, you could absolutely tell he loved playing this role, and it was a lot of fun watching him. So yeah, I did not mind this race swap personally. And here's another big one some people might not know about. Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. Well, I mean, everyone knows he plays this role, but some might not know that in the comics, the character is originally white. I know some versions have been black. I think they made him, have him be, the original son or something, but yeah. But they made him black for the movies, and no one really seemed to mind. Because, yeah, he was awesome in the role. There's many other famous examples of race swapping, like Eartha Kitt as Catwoman, Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent in the 1989 Batman movie, the person who played Commissioner Gordon in The Batman with Robert Pattinson, but they all gave fantastic performances. Well, good performances in my opinion, and no one really seemed to have an issue with it. So my thought is that if I didn't have any problem with any of those casting choices, why should I really have a problem with Leah as Annabeth? So I've decided I'm not going to judge based anything on appearances, and I'm just going to personally wait till I can watch the series, and then judge Leah solely based on her acting ability, and then make the decision of if I think she's done a really good job as Annabeth. I am really hoping she and the other main trio all really do a great job in this roles, and they go on to be very successful. Now again, for anyone who's watched the show so far, you can let me know if you think Leah, Walker, and Arian have all been doing good jobs so far. Just let me know in the comments, without spoilers again, and just tell me how you think they've done acting-wise, and how well they've done at portraying the vibes and personalities of the characters. I'd be excited to hear that. Now again, I do not think anyone initially upset at the casting choice is a racist. Okay, well, some of them were, okay, for any of the actual people who were bullying and harassing Leah, a minor, online because of this, yeah, go to Tartarus. That is wrong, even if you don't like the casting choice. But initial bit of upset and confusion I don't think completely makes people racist, because as I've said, some people just like seeing characters portrayed the way they've seen them for many years. But as I said, I gotten over it, and I'm happy to see Leah do well in the show, hopefully. But one thing I do want to see is for, newer people coming into this series, is to not forget how Annabeth originally looked. Say, if someone on social media, like Twitter or Tumblr or something, drew a picture of the original Annabeth, and some bozo comes along and is like, hey, that's not how Annabeth is supposed to look. Why'd you whitewash her, you racist? I've seen that some happens with some other fandoms of shows where race swapping has occurred, and I really just don't want to see that here. As I said, I want people who draw I want people to be able to draw fan arts of the old and new Annabeths together simultaneously with acceptance. Someone who draws old Annabeth fan art, someone else goes, cool, what do you think of my fan art of the new Annabeth? Cool. And just no argument, no hate. I know it's the internet, so we're gonna get some, but a man can dream. So yeah, I am fine with the casting choice. I just hope for the future that the internet can accept both versions of the book and movie characters. I mean, show characters. We do not accept the movie characters. Alright, well, that took longer than expected, but now that I've gotten that out of the way, I'm just going to go ahead and give some quick thoughts on some of the other cast members. So this is right here is Dior Goodjohn playing Clarice LaRue, daughter of Ares and bully character. And I didn't know what to really think of first when I first saw her on the show, or her picture as Clarice, because the thing about her is, yeah, she looks nice, really pretty, kind of like the movie version, but like both versions, Clarice is not really supposed to be like that. She's supposed to look mean, aggressive, tough, and muscular, like someone who at her age could probably beat up one of the teachers if she wanted to. And look, I understand that's kind of a hard person to find for casting in a show like this, so again, not too bothered. And I've seen some pictures that she does have some muscle. So as I said, I'll just wait to watch the show and see if she does a good job at believably being able to stuff Walker's head down a toilet. That is a very weird sentence to say. And here we have a picture of Luke Castellan, son of Hermes. Again, a joke we all sort of came out with was that he looks very much more like Percy, and Percy has the hair color of Luke. That's a kind of funny switch. At least what I've seen, I think he'll do a good job. Hopefully he does a good job of portraying seeming friendly at first, but a bit of anger in him, a bit of darkness. For what's to come. Now, I myself won't spoil what happens in the book, but so I'll just leave it at that. I do like the inclusion of the scar on his face. They left that out of the movie completely, which, again, didn't like. So again, glad they got that, at least that part of his appearance right, and hopefully they got his motivations right too. And here we have Glenn Turman, I think his name is, who is playing the character of Chiron. Now, appearance-wise, he does look a lot as described with the tweed jacket and the thinning hair. Yeah, in the movies and even official artworks, you never really see thinning hair, which I think is cool. Now again, he's not actually pictured racially, which isn't a big problem because he never really was described racially in the books. But I can understand what some people say, as he's a figure of Greek mythology, so he should look more Greek, as in if you're going to do an adaptation of a certain mythology, the characters in it should match the region they're from, which I understand. But I have learned that he is actually a pretty qualified person for this job, being not only someone who directed a summer camp, but also is a pro horseback rider. So, actually really piques my interest. So yeah, we'll see if he does a good job. I'm really hoping so. Now let's move on to some of the gods, starting with Dionysus here. Honestly, this looks exactly how he does in the books. With the tiger print shirt, that's a very nice touch. And he looks very much like how the character was described. And I'm hoping he does a very funny performance when we see him on the screen. Because, as I said, the Sea of Monsters movie had many flaws, but Stanley Tucci as Mr. D was not one of them. So it's going to be a hard performance to live up to, but judging by his picture alone, I think he can do it. Next up, we have Morgan Edge as Ares, and I thought he looked pretty accurate with the whole rough biker look. And I'm excited to see what he does, and I'm excited to see him fight in the series. Yes, there's a fight with Ares in the book that I'm hoping the series does really well and is cool. If I did have one little minor issue with, it's the eyes. And I'm going to talk about this more in a later part, but one thing that Ares is known for in the books is that he has eyes are just pits of glowing fire, which I thought was really cool, but I don't see that here. Maybe it'd be like it's just going to flicker and we'll see it occasionally. I hope we at least get that, and if not, well, as I said, I'll discuss that at a later point. And here we have Poseidon. Now, I think he looks good for the role, because as I said, Walker is going to look different from how Percy is described in the books, and so Poseidon now has to look different because a big part of Percy's appearance is that he looks a lot like Poseidon, so you had to find an actor who looks like he could be Walker's father, and for that, I think they've done a good job. So we'll just see how well he's portrayed in the series. And here we have Lance Reddick as Zeus. Now, before I say anything else, I do have to address that he sadly passed away after his role was done. Rest in peace, Lance Reddick. I'm sure you'll do a great job. So I'm hoping he does a good job. And I do like the look. He's got the pinstripe suit down. Though kind of sad we didn't get his marbled gray beard that looks like storm clouds. I thought that would have been cool, but hey, that's just me, and it's not necessarily needed. Hopefully he does a good job of giving like the demanding presence Zeus have, but also the fact that he's kind of a jerk, kind of being an understatement. But as I said, I hope he does well in the series. May he rest in peace, and I hope we find a suitable replacement for him, because we will have to see Zeus again in the stories. So this is one role where we will have to recast. But I hope for this one season he does a good job and we can all have happy memories of it. Now, if there is one one character whose appearance bugs me the most, it would be for who's playing Medusa. Now, don't get me wrong, she is very beautiful, but that's exactly the problem. It's the same problem I had with Uma Thurman in the movies. It's like, yeah, they're very attractive people, but like, that's the exact opposite of what you want for Medusa. Like, her face isn't supposed to be like partially covered, it should be completely. And also in like the 2000s Clash of the Titans movie, where she actually doesn't look that bad, and I'm like, no, she's supposed to look completely hideous. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the entire reason Medusa is able to turn people to stone, like the thing that makes her do that, is the fact that she's so horrific, that she's so ridiculously horrendous in appearance. And so not seeing that in a lot of, not just this in the movies and other adaptations, really kind of bothers me, but again, that's just an appearance thing. Hopefully, when it comes to acting, good job. But as I said, that's just something that bugs me I've seen in some portrayals of Medusa. And that's most of the major casting that I felt like talking about. That's all the major stuff that I had like big opinions on that I just wanted to let out. So now I'm going to talk about just another thing that might have me potentially concerned, and I couldn't find a good picture for it, so I'm just going to use this, and that is how the effects and CGI are going to look in the show. Because I've heard that's been a problem with some recent Disney products and some Marvel movies of how the CGI does not look good at all. And I've heard some things about how they've not been treating their VFX artists well. And so I'm just concerned of just how when we get to like monsters and other like fantastical things, like how is it going to look? Like I don't usually mind CGI that much. I'm not an expert in it at any means, so it usually is not bother me as much, or maybe I just can't tell. But I've seen some stuff, like in Marvel stuff, like that one clip of Thor Love and Thunder everyone keeps referencing. Yeah, I get that. There has me concerned in some areas
as I mentioned, Ares does not have his flaming eyes. I think that might be don't know if that's difficult to do with CGI or a problem with the budget. So it might be, I'm hoping it's at the very least occurring, but I do not know. And another thing I've heard is that Argus, who is a very minor character in the books, he's a guy who helps guards the camp, who has eyes all over his body. He is not going to be in this series, probably because they couldn't find a good way to make him work with the effects they had. Now again, him not being included doesn't really bother me because I can understand it being a problem, but it just concerns me going forward of the fact of like, should this even be a live action series? Personally, I'm a very big fan of animation, and I've always thought Percy Jackson and the Riordanverse in general would be really great as an animated series. Like, especially when it comes to like fantasy shows, it's like all I'm hearing is some of this is a bunch of limitations. That many of these limitations you would not have if it's animated. Like, you're like, well, we can't find an exact person who looks like the book description. Well then, just animate it, and you can just draw them how they're supposed to look. This type of creature or monster is really hard to pull off in live action. Well, then animate it. And again, then you won't have any problem with how it's going to look in CGI or going over budget or anything like that. So that's just my thought. I thought Percy Jackson would be a bit better as an animated series, especially if it goes on, because I'm assuming the main objective is after this to get a season 2 based on Sea of Monsters and go all the way until we have all 5 books eventually adapted. And there's a lot of out there and crazy designs for some creatures and monsters and stuff. And I'm just kind of worried if they're just not going to look good, or if they're just going to be, like Argus, cut out entirely. So it's just that the limitations of doing Percy Jackson in live action concerns me a little. But as again, I'll watch the show for myself and I'll see how some of the monsters and other fantastical elements look. And hopefully they can work out of using some of the other characters and monsters and stuff going forward. Now, as I've said before, I've seen some of the trailers, and I think they've done a good job of easing some of my worries. I thought seeing the Chimera at the end was pretty cool. Glad to see he's being adapted, because I kind of hated the fact that he wasn't in the first movie, because I think he's a really cool monster. And there were some genuine laughs in the latest trailer, the one where Percy was trying archery but fails horrible, and he's like, should I do that again? And they're all like, no, no, no. It's a very funny scene, and I like that they remembered the fact that Percy is crap at archery, which is, again, starting to ease my feelings that, again, Riordan was a part of this. These people know what they're doing. This is going to be a way more faithful adaptation than the movies. So it eased my worries. And I have noticed that they are changing some things in the stories, and I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on those. One change I noticed was Sally going ahead and talking more about Percy with Greek mythological stuff. Sally is Percy's mom, for those who don't know, and I think that could be a good change, because again, being a demigod is a very dangerous thing in the Percy Jackson world, and I could see her trying to do whatever she could to best protect him or prepare him in some way, because it is eventually going to happen given his heritage. And I did not talk about her casting much when I probably should have, but I think she looks nice. I do hope she does a good job of portraying just how much of a warm, kind person Sally is, and they do a really good job showing the mother-son bond of these two, because that's a big emotional core of the story, is their relationship. So I'm hoping to see that done very well. Another change that I noticed is that when we get to the Lotus Casino, we're going to be seeing Hermes, played by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And yeah, it's a bit surprising because Hermes does not at all appear in the first book. He doesn't make an appearance until book 2. So I'm kind of curious of what role he's going to play in the first book. Like, there must be some reason that they're putting him in here. Like, there's some good story reason that Riordan hopefully approved. So we'll just have to wait and see. And as Lin-Manuel Miranda, I'm not sure how well he'll do as Hermes. I like Miranda. I think he'll do good. I'm kind of curious if he's going to sing or not. Like, is Percy Jackson going to temporarily become a musical? Which is funny because I'm pretty sure the first book already was a musical at one point. So we'll have to wait and see. As long as what he does in here is more Hamilton and less scuttlebutt. I do not want to see anything like scuttlebutt in this series, please. The last thing I want to mention before I give my closing thoughts is just something I want to see going forward with the series. And I don't mean just for this season, I mean like just for the long run in the series as a whole, because as I said, I'm pretty sure the main goal is to get all 5 books adapted. And one thing I want to see that I hopefully they can do in a series is expand on some of the side characters. Pictured here is a minor character in the book called Charles Beckendorf, son of Hephaestus. He appears a little bit in the first 4 books, like he's sometimes mentioned, but he never has a big role. But then he has a bigger role in the 5th book, and he and some other side characters have like big emotional moments. And one thing I kind of want to see in the series is to see characters like him and Selena Beauregard expanded on, because as I said, we don't really spend much time with them in the books themselves. I don't think they have enough time. So one thing that I'm hoping the series could do with characters like Beckendorf and Selena is we spend more time with them, we get to know them, see them interact with Percy and co more. And so now that we know them better, when big emotional moments do happen, the audience can really feel that emotion. I think it'd be a good idea because including their roles could, one, it could give more representation of diverse characters into the series, something I know Rick Riordan is a big fan of. And again, it could help expand the characters, give them more time than the books did, and make us really feel those emotional moments. But as I said, we'll just have to see how this season does, if more get made, and then we'll have this discussion again. And that's all the major points I think I've wanted to hit. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I didn't sound too scattershot or rambly in this. But yeah, I'd say overall I am still very excited for this series. As I said, while I have just a few eyebrow raisers at the cast at first, I very much gotten over it, and I'm hoping to see them all do really great jobs, and I can feel when I watch them, I'd be like, yeah, that's the characters that I know and love. I said I'm hoping this series is really good, and then it can do well, and then we can get more seasons, and at the very least, get the full book series made into a TV show, and then, who knows, maybe for the future, get some of the other Riordanverse works adapted. I think that'd be pretty cool if this does well. So as I said, I have not watched the show yet. I am doing that after this, and a little while after Christmas, I will give my review of the first 2 episodes and let you know my thoughts and probably connect it back to this. And just so you know, for the review, I'll probably doing it from the perspective of a book fan. I'll try to find a way to balance it between being a book fan and just how does this work as a show on its own. So yeah. Well, I'm going to stop recording now and then get ready to watch the episode. So I'm hoping this is going to be great, and we finally have the Percy Jackson adaptation that all fans, young and old alike, deserve. But we can all at least agree on one thing. no matter what, it's not going to be the movies. Please do not. It is not going to be worse than the movies. There is no way it can be worse than the movies. Well, that's all, folks. I hope you all have enjoyed this, and I will see y'all later. Merry Christmas, and sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.